Power people, welcome back to the Pawapod. This is the second episode of the 16 Days of Activism podcast series. We are focusing on women human rights defenders. And today in studio with me, we have one of the women human rights defenders, Maryann Wanjiru. Welcome to studio today. How are you?
I'm good, Maryann.
We are happy to have you today.
Thank you for having me today. So, as she said, my name is Maryann Wanjiru. I am a woman human rights defender from one of the largest informal settlements in Kenya, that is Mathare. Yeah.
We are happy to have you, Maryann. You look beautiful today.
Thank you.
So in this episode, we are going to learn more about human rights defenders, particularly the women human rights defenders, as we join into the global efforts to call to action on the elimination of violence against women. So kindly just tell us, who is a human rights defender? In simple language, unafanya nini kama HRD uko Mathare?
I think first I'll start with just the general description of a human rights defender. And it could be just basically even a teacher who's stopping a bully from bullying the other child. That's it. They're standing in for the other person and for what is right. So basically what I do, I champion for the rights of adolescent girls and young women in my community. Why? Because it's a lived experience. I've grown up in a community where gender-based violence and intimidation and discrimination against the girl child and women was and is still, unfortunately, the order of the day. So for me, this is having lived that experience, I'd like to see a positive change in the lives of girls and young women in my community and beyond. Yeah, so for me, it's a calling, really. It's a calling.
That's really inspiring. And I understand it's a very difficult field to work in, honestly. I'm pretty sure in your community you've been labeled names, toxic feminist, where utapata bwana. I mean, all those things that people tell you. So what keeps you, inspired? Or I know you've said you've lived through the experience, but what else makes you keep on pushing and advocating for women's rights and girls' rights in your community?
It's not easy. With all the defiances in the community, the same community that you're trying to advance forward, it's the same community that will be against you and the work that you do.
Yeah.
So for me, what keeps going is just when I see a young girl is able to access education, when I see a young girl is self-aware, when I see a young girl is able to stand up for herself, giving her that agency and her voice to speak for herself. So I think that's what keeps me going, in the hope that I can still make positive change one day at a time, because we can turn the world around. Almost immediately. So it's just baby steps, one step at a time, and I keep saying one girl at a time.
That's
and
really
let that
nice.
girl empower another one.
That's really nice. So now that the 16 Days of Activism, among the objectives, we are focusing on protection against women human rights defenders. And I know generally you've told us who is a human rights defender, but now who is a woman rights defender? Why the woman in the human rights defending?
We have so many human rights defenders, but why the woman human rights defenders? Because most of the gender-based violence and intimidation and discrimination is thrown at us. If someone can use sexual violence to intimidate me from following up on a case of a rape or defilement, as a woman, which is not used against any man human rights defender. If someone can use my status of being single to insult me or to try to intimidate me from doing the work that I do as a woman, and all these, they are thrown at us mostly as women, and it's in very rare cases that you'll find a man being objectified for not being married, for not having kids, for not having attained a degree and all that. So it's really most of this violence that is thrown at us as women, especially women human rights defenders, and even the system itself, the police, the people that we expect to protect us, are most of the people who are used to fuel or to enable these forms of violence.
As you're just talking, I'm thinking you're even now already telling us some of the challenges you face. But now, in your experience, in your lived experience in the community, what are some of the challenges that women rights defenders face? I know you've mentioned a few of them, but now maybe just to expound on them so that we are able to understand deeply. Yeah.
So to say some of the challenges, given that this work, it doesn't pay us, as I said before. it's a
no money in the
calling. So
bag.
I don't even like calling it a job or
Yeah.
work. It's a calling, and it needs for you to put yourself out there in a world of uncertainty when it comes to financial balance or financial freedom. So when you find that even me as a woman human rights defender, I cannot be able to cater for my own bills because this work doesn't pay.
Yeah.
It's
That's
just
sad.
like
Yeah.
doing pro bono lawyer work. And people overlook that, and people think, you have so many links to so many big organizations. How comes you're telling me you don't have food, you don't have rent? So that's one of the challenges. Another
Do
thing,
you think you're not supported enough as a woman rights defender?
yeah, I believe so. Actually, we are not supported enough. And we have had a calling with different organizations or people coming in to tap into our intellectual work, because it takes a lot of years to be able to be sort of an expert, to have the form of knowledge that one has. And we are calling for, I don't want to call it pay, but compensation for intellectual human rights work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, back to the challenges. Another thing is insecurity within the same communities that we try to serve. So if you find that the perpetrator maybe is a well-known person, maybe even a police, sometimes we even encounter where perpetrators are the policemen.
Yeah.
The very prominent people in society. You see, your life is at risk. And except for now that we have some non-governmental organizations coming in to offer protection for women human rights defenders. Before, it was risky. You had to go into hiding somewhere where you don't know where you'll go. You have no money to help you to run. You can't even go across the border. Una pesa ya kufika Uganda or Tanzania. So I think that's one of the things. And another thing also, because we don't have policies in place to protect us as human rights defenders.
Yeah.
And we feel like it's high time we infiltrate the spaces that inform these policies. Yeah.
So maybe just to ask, when you've talked about policies, is it that women human rights defenders are not recognized enough by the law, or what could be the challenge?
Yeah, and that's why when you hear someone say activist, everybody's mind runs to, she'll be in town, akipiga nduru, you know.
Yeah.
But activism comes in many forms, and there are many ways of doing that depending on what your end goal is. And we are not recognized, I have to say that. And that's a big part of the challenge, because with the work that you do, if the government doesn't recognize you, if the state players don't recognize you, then you're clearly just someone they can throw over. Yeah. You're left out for the dogs, and that's why you don't have protection, you don't have funding. Yeah.
Okay, that's really, really interesting. I'm really soaking into your story until now. But then maybe just to compare, say, women human rights defenders and men human rights defenders. Do you think the men human rights defenders have the same challenges like you people, or rather some of them that you experience? Or do they have it easy in the field?
I would not like to talk on their behalf. But as a woman and through the lived experiences that I've had, there have been better opportunities for men other than women. And also because of the norms that we have within our society. We're in a very African society where culture and religion really informs most of the things that are going on. And that's why you see that the man is spearheaded. He'll always be put above the woman. And that's one of the things we are trying to champion for. And that's why you find when a woman is very loud, you have to be extra loud to be heard.
Yeah.
up to a point
And
unasema,
when you're extra loud, you are labeled.
Yeah, up to a point unasema huyu anapenda kupiga kelele. But now that's the only way you have to be heard.
Yeah.
We have had to resort to that because of being oppressed in so many ways, and also the systems we have in Kenya. That's why we have the affirmative action to try and balance equal opportunities for women and girls. And I believe it shouldn't be that way, that we need to have an affirmative action. There should be actually equal opportunities for women and girls, the same as men. Yeah.
Okay, you've just reminded me of some incidents in Parliament. Is it Honorable Millie? Is it Millie? There's a time I think they had a discussion in Parliament, and I think it was about, they were trying to intimidate women with the fact that she has banned something, something to do with marriage. And she was so confident. We also, women, don't, pin us down with the issue of husbands and whatever. We can, and you marry as many wives as possible. And I found that very bold. And it just explains how it's really difficult for a woman to navigate in some of these spaces, including the political space. But then, maybe just to now talk about the importance of women human rights defenders and even human rights defenders at large in the community. What role do they play in the community? Because sometimes, people ignore or rather are ignorant of some of their importance in the community, and hence they don't even fight for your rights, for example, to be recognized by the law. So what role do you play in the community, and why should people recognize those contributions?
So I think one of the key things we play is creating awareness that there's actually this form of oppression against girls and women, and it needn't not be so. Another thing we do is also representation. How am I able to represent the issues of girls and young women, maybe to a space or a level where they're not able to reach? And another thing I'd say is like being role models.
Yeah.
Because growing up, I didn't have people I could look up to. The only people I could see were on TV. But within my community, I could not point out a person that I could actually look up to, a person who could hold my hand and show me the way around. And I think my activism started from a really young age. I just didn't know what I was doing then. Because I'd remember growing up in a family where GBV was the order of the day. I would resist because in a way I knew this was wrong. So I would resist, be it making noise, be crying, shouting, stop. And that was my form of resistance then. And now I'm able to articulate these issues even at a bigger platform. And it's really a privilege for me. So I feel like that the key important thing is really just championing and defending the vulnerable girls and women, because there are really many, especially in informal settlements. They are vulnerable, especially to poverty. And I believe that poverty is the root of it all.
Yeah,
that's why a girl cannot afford sanitary towels, which are just 50 or 60 bob. And to some people, it may seem like 60 bob, unakosa aje 60 bob. But there are people who cannot afford that. There are people who cannot afford a decent meal. And that's why you find there are so many teen pregnancies going around. Because now men, especially men, are taking advantage of that. You coax this girl with sanitary towels, with a meal. And that's why when you are young, you're being told, usikatiwe na chips na kuku. But it was actually true, because I'd never seen kuku in my life.
So I love that you mentioned something about activism, and maybe I'd just like to ask, in the context of women human rights defenders, do you think that this is a role that is just left for women in the informal settlements? Because you come from Mathare, but do you think women who live away from the informal settlements are keen, or even men, to fight for women's rights, or is it just people who say, I have a lived experience?
I believe that discrimination and violence against women it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Whether you're rich, middle class, or poor.
It's just different.
It's just
Different
manifests
based-
itself in very different forms.
Yeah.
Like in the informal settlements, I lack sanitary towels. But when you come to middle class, this person will not be given an opportunity to speak for herself. When you come maybe to a very prominent family, they cannot make decisions in the house. That's also oppression and discrimination against women. It just manifests itself in different forms, at different levels of the society. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe just as we wind up, now that you're a woman human rights defender, do you receive support from your friends, from your family, or they see you as a defiant one?
Acha kwanza nianze.
Ule kichwa nguvu.
I was left because of that.
Oh, uko soko?
Yeah.
My boys mesikia, look for her.
And now I look back at it and I laugh because they didn't believe in the person that I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And as I said before, one of the people to put you down will be the same society that you're trying to champion for. And you'll hear things like, mefundisha watoto wetu kutoa mimba when you advocate for safe abortions. Because I'd rather this girl lives through the process than see her die when she goes to a quack doctor who will do funny things to her body. And I'd rather see her have a future.
Yeah.
You see? So even sometimes family will go against you, also given by virtue of what they believe in. Because if they do not believe in things like safe abortion, sexual liberation, they do not believe in a woman taking leadership positions. So these are challenges that we face, and I believe every other woman human rights defender will agree with that. But we find ways to overcome through sisterhood, through solidarity. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Maryann. That was very interesting to listen to. And lastly, as we continue with the 16 days of activism, what would be your message out there to women human rights defenders and even young people, women, men, community members?
So, one thing I keep saying, violence is a choice. Violence against anyone is a choice. And as women human rights defenders, I feel like we're just starting. Because every other day, a new form of violence keeps popping up.
Yeah.
This day we are fighting FGM, and then tomorrow we are fighting intimate partner violence, and then the other day we are fighting like emotional violence.
Yeah.
So it keeps changing and manifesting. So we keep keeping on. Yeah. Because sometimes I wake up, I'm like, staki kazi tena. Sitaki kazi tena. Because it really takes away from your physical, emotional, and also mental, financial. Yeah. Because sometimes when you have an emergency case, you have to use your money, fare, transport, food, and such. Yeah. But I think if it really is within your heart, you keep finding a way to keep on going. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Maryann. It was very emotional listening to you. I love that you are talking from experience and somebody can easily connect to it. We are so happy to have you, and we are, as Maryann has told us, we are calling upon every man, every woman, every young girl, to join us in advocating for elimination against
against girls and women.
So yeah, we are calling for women, young girls, men to advocate against violence, elimination of violence against young women and other women, so that we are able to save lives, protect them, love them. We need to have a society that is habitable. Other than that, thank you so much for listening to our podcast today. Watch out for the 3rd episode of this series. It will be coming out soon. Check out our social media pages at Power254. I enjoyed hosting this episode. Until then, see you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.